Chronicles TV on air. We are now live in 3, 2, 1.
Beach bums! Forensic medicine primer. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget the youngster did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Alrighty then. If anything, we'll describe it as his. Is what you said true, Inspector? Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily? Yes, think of the weapon itself as a stopper if the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until a doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper should be removed. Oh, I see. Ha! This is why Yoko should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled a blade out of a wound, so... Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Father, is it true what they're telling me? Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics. Ray wouldn't have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways. But then, why would Ray have done it? Could she have pulled out the knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett? I don't know. Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but... could my friend actually have? Susato! Yes? Pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here. Ah. Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination. Oh, yes, Your Excellency. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my objection immediately afterwards. I understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. Alrighty then, Inspector Hosanaga's testimony. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause having bleeding, that we know. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant without sense ought to know. In other words, there's no reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the thing. And that's showing the freaking thing, yeah. Extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim in both eyes. Death would occur within minutes. Fatal hemorrhage, recent log, blah blah. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. That was useless information.
Hold it!
You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean that if you use due care and attention, it will be alright? I would have thought this needed spilling out, really, but... the blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it, and a serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to present any attempt to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it. Oh, well, thank you very much for the thorough explanation. You see, Counsel, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath. Back to the witness testimony, please. The basic knowledge will...
Hold it!
In that case, there's an obvious explanation here. Which is... clearly, defendant Raymond Bombi does not possess an ounce of sense. Okay, you're just hurting your friend like that. What do you think about that, Professor Mikotoba? I'm not sure that you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense. Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer. I don't know young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it. Careful, Counsel. A lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing.
Oh dear, that recoiled me hard rather badly.
That's life, I'm afraid. Lesson everyone must learn. Hopefully you can see now that this is really basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Membami would certainly have been aware of it. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried.
Hold it!
But the defendant had suddenly encountered somebody she knew lying on the ground, bleeding to death. The sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently. I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this. The woman is medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally. Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it? Oh dear, you have a lot to learn about women. Only a small-minded man could have such a big views.
Oh dear, perhaps I'm letting my male persona take a hold a little too much.
Well, have I managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. Let's not forget that the youngster did have a motive to killing the victim.
Hold it!
Whatever the motive is, it's just a Membami's son's nature to do something so awful. But she had both motive and opportunity. That's very hard to argue against. But you don't know the defendant.
Objection!
The flesh, my eyes. And you, counsel, do not appear to know the law. Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings. With this, fledglings to defend her, I would almost say I pity the accused.
So do I.
Inspector, you will reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please. Ah, yes. Miss Brett was in many ways a sworn enemy of Membami's son. It's not like we got anything. We can't even thoroughly check this! For no reason. That's all there is. Not so much Wagahai. What is there to see anyways? We only got 4 things.
Hold it!
Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Membami's son's talent and offered her the position of assistant despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him. Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual. Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Membami's ability. Clearly, the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point.
This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. If Ray knew that withdrawing the knife would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she didn't.
Susato, it's time like these when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals.
The fundamentals?
And this is what counts. Yeah, we only have 4. I know! 4th wall! I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You need to take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine. Finally, you give me the option. Please, thank you. I'm about to say, give us the freaking examining part. That's what I needed. I know what to do, Chief. You should have given us that part a long time ago.
Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san were always turning evidence over and over in their heads. Yes, I need to examine things in greater detail with A.
Ah, but I look in your eyes. I see it's coming back to you. Go through the court record again and have a thorough exam at everything.
Yes, I'll do it. I'll do it straight away.
Finally, you gave me that option. Alrighty then, that's not the thing I need to do. Let me look at the newspaper. What do we got at the back? Hey, we're talking about the phone guy. Raucous English attorney tells all. This is the interview with you and Saseki-san, is it, father?
It looks as though it was quite an exchange.
Yes, he became quite over-animated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment his hand karate chopped me in the neck.
I do hope you weren't hurt.
What's this about?
This is the newspaper from Soseki-san. There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Whoa. Father, is that your lab?
What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen?
Is this morning paper that Soseki-san gave us? Are you saying you didn't know?
As embarrassing as this, the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I've not heard such thing. Where on earth could the reporter have gleaned this information?
Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning the story in our paper this morning, was there?
It's a highly toxic poison we've been working on in strictest confidence. I put Ray in charge of the project.
Ray! She was managing it!
If what written is true, it means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, the details were leaked somehow.
I don't believe it.
We need to read this article very carefully.
Yo.
Let me check on this.
If we take out the pen's lid. Hey, yo.
No blood.
The RM initials are clearly engraved here.
And the fact that Miss Brett was cleaning the pen in her dying moments were a clear message too.
The identity of her killer, you mean?
I don't think there can be any doubt that this is the key evidence in this case.
And there's no blood at the tip.
What's this part?
There's some sort of emblem here, look. But it isn't university one.
It must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. But that would seem to imply the pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray.
Yo! Nice, nice. RM.
Let me see. Following the lecture to Soseki on the 11th August, it came to light that a very disturbing incident took place. A deadly poison being secretly developed in the university forensic site was stolen. Even the smallest amount of entering the body, either via the mouth or via wound poison placed blade, would prove fatal in minutes.
The poison's in the pen!
Current methods cannot detect the newly developed chemical. The university would have been consulted. Onset symptoms occurs in minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with the acute contraction of the pupils. Prior to death, such as symptoms would be suggestive of the toxin. It apparently the entirely new synthesis of alkaloids and rumored to have been commissioned by the military. Pulling the blade from thinking blah 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 blah. Let's not forget. The man 9 months ago, the doctor was the defendant, blah blah. So what should we press on? There's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. That's basic knowledge and medical research. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man that was murdered. I would assume that we would have to press on this right here. Because he mentions about what could the motive be. But I think the motive is this.
Objection!
That is not what I'm thinking of. Because we need a motive, right? So, let's move on to this. Hopefully that does something.
Objection!
That did nothing as well! So what are we looking at, Chief? I am really making this as the next episode because in other words, there's no good reason why. Okay, third time's the charm.
Objection!
I had the right idea, but I was in the wrong section. No, there is one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound. What? Ha! The yokel not only has poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us, Dan, what possibly do you think you are identified? It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from the laboratory and the Imperial unit.
Objection!
The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance in this case. But... Prosecutor Aoichi, you will let the defense speak. But a newspaper article, the court cannot rely on kind of hearsay with those wretched publications carry. Wikipedia. Counsel for the defense. I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion.
Your Excellency!
Yes, of course. Thank you. Ray would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained in the article where it says... Hold up. Following the lecture of blah blah of 11 August comes to light a very disturbing incident. A deadly poison being circulated developed at the university blah blah. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the wound or via from the poison lace, would prove fatal in minutes. Paramedics cannot detect the newly developed chemical. The university would have been consulted. Onset symptoms occurs in minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with the acute constriction of pupils prior to death. Blah blah blah. Pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained, where it says poison stolen from your laboratory. The poison was apparently stolen from a medical research laboratory at UMA University. Yes, it would seem so, calling the department's security practices into question. The very department that Professor standing so nonchalantly opposed me, I believe. Ryotaro? Oh, yes, Father? Was there some reason you felt it necessary to highlight the fact that the theft occurred in my department? How can I explain it? It was the first detail I cast my eye over, I suppose. I suggest you read the article again carefully. I'm so sorry. Oh dear, Father's fuming again. Why is it deadly in tiny quantities? I don't know. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body, a knife laced with the poison, it rapidly absorbs and causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting? If the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Membami-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible. Yes, the truth is, it was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body. What? I'm not doing so well with my IQ here.
Objection!
This is complete and utter nonsense! Not at all! The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility. Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document. Well, that's because by acting quick to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking hold.
Objection!
Oh, please, this is clear desperation. The weasel last breaking a win. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with the case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is all reliable anyway. In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for the medical assistant to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have a strong reason for her suspicions then. Argument that makes no sense. Exactly, well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it him? Why did Ray suspect the stolen poison was involved? If you want grounds, I'll give you grounds. What? You can't possibly. From your expression, counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in the courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence. Yes, Your Excellency. I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. In this case, counsel, will you present the proof to the court now? What evidence discerns a clear link between this case and the poison in the newspaper article? What evidence? The post-mortem report that details the thing?
Take that!
I would ask the court to refer to the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim. Ah! Clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please, do tell me. Presumably, the fact that the condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death. Well? Under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead,
That's most certainly unusual, yes. What are you doing, you Yoko detective? In the news article, there's a following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurred in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. What? If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely, yes, as medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt. Prosecutor Aoichi, I think you'll agree this is very compelling evidence. You, Yoko student of Yoko professor! I mean, aren't we all country bumpkins? I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions. No! Eugene Mikotoba? Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you're best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of defense counsel argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in this newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. You mean to tell the court that the reports of the theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say. Ha! Listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft of secret state research from his own workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper. I take full responsibility of the incompetence of my supervision. Father! Heh! A pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students, rather than allowing them killing sprees. That's totally unfounded. Who? What? Flash? None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray. Mambami-san, you stand the accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated. But it was me. I was the one who noticed the poison we were developing had been stolen that day. What? So you knew? I've been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day the professor and his sick son were interviewing together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was. Why didn't you let me know immediately? I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So I decided I'd try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was. The thief? You don't mean... Yes, of course. It was that dainty Englishwoman. Miss Giselle Brett? That's why I decided to join the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on the stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? And then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me and then collapsing on the floor. That's when I saw the knife in her back. I couldn't understand what had just happened. And then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they shrunk to tiny pinpoints. I don't believe it. In other words, you realized that the victim was suffering in the effects of the stolen poison. My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips without less I had been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. On the blade of the knife in her back. And that train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade. Yes, if the amount that had entered the bloodstream was small enough, she might still have a chance. That's what I hope. Really, I'm sorry for staying silent all this time.
Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I duly noted the courage with which you confessed in the end.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's barely perceptible, but I do think the balance has shifted a little here in this courtroom now.
Objection!
Your Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Mami-san, if that's the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed. Well, you have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed that victim motivated by revenge.
Objection!
The Flash. But you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you? Oh? I have evidence, and it's very much conclusive. What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he's hesitated for a moment there. He's almost sure.
You will produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Aoichi.
Perhaps some praise is due, young yokel student. What? I imagined there could be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you brought this on yourself. Yo! Her eyes! It's been revealed! What the? Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty in the air on the bench is almost palpable. Yo. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature, where it shows the precise moment the Membami-san plunged her dagger into the victim's back. No! That's not true! No! I don't believe it.
To be continued. Order. Counsel for the defense, was it you who was responsible for the shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom?
Perhaps his voice has yet to break. These yokels are slow of mind and slow to mature. I'll show you who's slow to mature.
Careful now, Susato is starting to show her face here. As often the picture is worth than 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will accept this extremely conjured photograph as evidence.
I can't believe he had a photograph like that up his sleeve the entire time. It's such a stark image, I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute, I don't understand. How did you... I mean, who took the photograph? Hey,
Objection!
that's of no importance here. Stop trying to divert the attention. Oh,
Objection!
that's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photograph print was a witness to the Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear the person's testimony. Is it the guy that's taking pictures of Mr. Soseki? I will hope the defense is the man. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once. Well, I'm afraid I can't do that. Pardon? You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday, but there was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of the print is unknown.
Goodness.
Are we to understand then, the counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph has the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believe it's fit for submission as evidence in the Supreme Court?
When you first produced the print before, I noticed that you hesitated for a brief moment. Because you knew that it wasn't completely unreliable evidence, didn't you?
Silence, you yokel student and blabbering professor! What matters is the blatant truth that this print so eloquently expresses. But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment the knife was plunged into the victim's back, but the moment it was withdrawn? Don't waste this court's time with your ramblings.
Indeed, without knowledge of who produced this print, we have no means of verifying the claim. And the scene captures it without the doubt the most compelling evidence presented to court. If the defense is unable to shed any further light on the matter, I believe the conclusion is clear.
No!
Susato, this is the time for you to fight. If you what the established so far is true, then there can be no doubt. I think I figured out who it is because of the freaking photograph. This photo shows the moment of which will lay the victim.
Yes, we just need to prove that somehow. You'll have plenty of time to rue your defeat on the slow train back to the province. And to rue the day you came up against Takatsuchi Aoji in court of law. If I can't determine who took this photograph, then the trial isn't going to come to an end. There must be a clue somewhere. There must be some way of working out who took it.
Well, Counsel?
Your Excellency, the burning question is who took the photograph? And the truth is... This isn't about whether I can or can't come up with the answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took the dramatic photograph print is, I assure you, something the fans can and will reveal. What? No, you can't possibly. But, as you so boldly claim that you can, please, do enlighten us. Unfortunately, I'm unable to present a name. How utterly underwhelming. Did you really believe you could? However, I am able to present evidence. The fence has a piece of evidence that reveals the important details of the photographer's identity. What?
Very well then, Counsel. Present your proof to the court. Which evidence do you claim reveals something identity of the mysterious photographer?
Take that!
What is that? The newspaper again? Raucous English attorneys tell all.
It's not the headline that's relevant here, Your Excellency. It's the photograph. If you look at closely, you'll notice that there are some white lines on the right side.
Ah, yes, indeed. That had been caught my eye as it happens.
Ha! What of it? A shadow of some kind, presumably from the branches of a tree or the like?
There are no trees growing inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you.
Now, if you look closely at this photograph...
Good gracious!
Yes, exactly the same pattern of lines is present on this photograph too.
Attention!
Well, that tells us nothing. Ha! Yes, it's a shadow of some kind, definitely, from the branches of trees. There wouldn't be any trees growing inside a hut at a beach, Council. No.
What's quite remarkable about it is that two paths are absolutely identical. How could such extraordinary similarity have transpired?
The curious matching pattern that appears on both photograph prints is a result of a camera defect. Obviously, it must be due to a problem with the camera used to take the photographs. With the photographic device?
Yes, we can confidently say the camera's lens must have been scratched, and that the scratched lens caused unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device.
In short, the two photographs under consideration here were taken with the same camera. But there must be hundreds of such camera devices here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of the particular one. I think you're forgetting, Prosecutor Aoichi, that one of the photographs featured in the newspaper article. A newspaper? Huh? That's right. The author of the article is the mysterious witness to this crime. Yeah.
Ooh. I see why you were called a raucous English attorney.
What are you yelling about? You've already testified.
It's many memo, I tell you. Many memo. Me, mo.
Soseki-san? What was that? Did you say many memo?
Ever since I returned to Japan, a reporter from Shoyu News had been hounding me, following my every move. A reporter by the name of Raiten Many Memo. Yes, hounding me from dawn to dusk.
Now that he mentions it. That guy. Hey, what's that thing on his right arm? Could that same reporter be... Is that poison on his right?
The camera to the left of it. I don't know what he said. There I am, stuck in the middle with Raiten Many Memo. They're saying that this picture was taken by
many memo, yes, my lord, your excellency, Esquire.
Officer, find this newspaper reporter at once, bring him to the courtroom. We will adjourn for the short recess in the meantime.
Oh, yes, your excellency. As you say, your excellency.
And one more thing. I want the knife, the murder weapon, examined for traces of poison. We haven't even got that in the freaking thing. You will solicit the assistant of the Imperial University Medical Department for the test, understood?
Meh. Many memo.
To be continued. Like, comment, subscribe. Chronicles XTV, and I'm signing out.